Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Monday, June 19th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Indiana game is in 75 days. The game against Michigan in 159 days. Look at that. I remembered how to do the intro to the show. Thank you to everyone who helped cover for me the last couple weeks while I was out of town. Tony and Kevin and Mark and everyone else. Thank you for holding down the fort without me. I'm back. Sorry, listeners, I'm back. But good news, Marc Givler's back as well. And Marc Givler might be bringing some good news today on this lovely Monday morning. Mark, it was a big recruiting weekend for Ohio State. They had a whole bunch of visitors in town for officials, but I really want to talk to you about two of those guys, both of them five-star prospects out of the state of Georgia. Let's start with Eddrick Houston. He's a defensive end, five-star prospect, and I guess let's start with give us a little bit of a scouting report on Eddrick Houston, and then give us a little bit about what you're hearing about Eddrick Houston.
Yeah, I think Eddrick Houston might be the best player in the country in this class. I think him and Jeremiah Smith are probably 1 and 2, just from the guys I've seen. But he's one of those big body defensive ends that, you look at him from a physical standpoint and you kind of you read his measurables at 6'5", 245, and you think, maybe he's going to be a 3 tech, but I really don't think he's going to be. He's incredibly flexible, incredibly athletic, already has a great power rush moves, just a guy who plays hard and again, I think he's one of the most complete defensive ends I've seen come out of high school the last few years, to be honest.
There's some smoke coming out of this. You've had Eddrick Houston as potentially in the class for a little while now. It feels like maybe some other folks are sort of catching up to that now following that official visit this weekend. What are you hearing about, what's your sense for how that's going, where Ohio State stands coming out of the official and all that?
Yeah, I think Ohio State's in great shape right now. He does have an announcement date set for August 22nd, so I tend to think he will stick with that and not push things up at this point with about 2 months out. But who knows? You just never know with this stuff. But it sounds like he's got some plans for his announcement, so that's when he's scheduled. Right now, Ohio State, to me, is very much in the driver's seat. Great visit. They've done a great job this entire spring. Larry Johnson has been tireless with working on building a relationship with Eddrick, but also everyone in his proximity, all his family members and everything else. So this has been a very much a Larry Johnson driven recruiting process for Ohio State, and you throw in the fact that they can offer a very appealing depth chart for guys in this recruiting class after not bringing in a lot of defensive ends last year. And having some guys who will be off to the NFL probably after this year as well. So this is kind of a perfect storm for Ohio State on this one, and I think they're going to get this done.
So Eddrick Houston is one of the 5 stars coming out of Buford, Georgia for the 2024 cycle. Another one is KJ Bolden. He's a safety prospect, also from Buford, also a 5-star, also in 2024. He was also on campus this weekend. Sunday afternoon, he tweeted out just a picture of him and Eddrick Houston, tagged Eddrick Houston, and said 10 out of 10 visit for sure. So, maybe this is not quite as far along, maybe, as the Eddrick Houston one, but that certainly sounds like there's some promising, at least some promising developments on that front for Ohio State as well. Yeah,
it was interesting. Early in the process, I thought Ohio State was in great shape. The last maybe 4 to 6 months, Georgia and Alabama have been getting a lot of the buzz. And I know a lot of people are thinking maybe he's leaning towards staying in the SEC, but I actually talked to someone down in the Atlanta area on Friday morning going into the visit, and they shared with me that they thought that this was going to be something that Ohio State could win. They felt that Ohio State was not just a hat on the table here, that Ohio State was a very real threat. And so, he's Perry Eliano's cousin. He's been up several times. You're knocking it out of the park with Eddrick Houston. I think things have moved in a good direction this weekend. I don't know. The problem I think Ohio's going to run into is you've got Alabama and Georgia in this, whereas with Eddrick, I think it's more of like Clemson and maybe Georgia. So you're not dealing with Alabama so much with Eddrick, but you are with KJ maybe a little more. But look, I'm more optimistic than I was 3 or 4 days ago when I thought maybe Peyton Woodyard would be the guy and not KJ Bolden. Now it could be either one of them. I'm sure they're going to try and get both. I think that's going to be difficult, but I think things have moved in a very good direction here the last week or two.
Well, and I guess take a second and let people know why Peyton Woodyard and KJ Bolden are kind of linked there. And you might not be able to get both, but if one of them goes somewhere else, it might make it more likely that you get the other. Yeah,
I mean, these are two guys they've had a great chance at, the whole way through their process. Peyton committed early to Georgia, but Ohio State was the runner-up, and I think Ohio State was a little caught off guard that he committed that early and committed to Georgia. So they've kept at that. They had him on campus this weekend. This was his second visit. He actually made an unofficial visit while committed to Georgia. So he's visited Ohio State twice while committed to Georgia. And that's another one who Alabama's in on too, trying to flip. So, Georgia's got a bunch of safeties committed, and Ohio State obviously needs safety help in this class. They did get Jalen McClain recently, but they're going to be taking a few safeties in this class, and these are kind of the two guys at the top of their board. And there's been a line of thought that if KJ Bolden goes to Georgia, that could maybe be the straw that breaks the camel's back in terms of Peyton Woodyard. Maybe he's been looking around elsewhere, and so maybe if they add yet another safety to their class, that just might make Woodyard take an even more serious look at Ohio State and USC and Alabama. So the school of thought there has been it's going to be tough for anybody to get two of these guys, and it's not impossible, but it's going to be very difficult, and that the odds are that they're going to end up at different schools. So we'll see what happens there. Like I said, Ohio State would love to have them both, but we'll see what happens.
Well, we know over, historically, the old package deal doesn't usually work. This is like almost the anti-package deal that you're not going to get both. But if you get one, that probably works out pretty well for Ohio State as well. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. As Mark said, Eddrick Houston has a decision date set for August 22nd. KJ Bolden, we could have a decision on him before the season as well. So that's going to be stuff we're going to be keeping an eye on for the next few months. Obviously, the offensive side of that 2024 class in pretty good shape. If they can build out that defensive side of the class and add a couple of these guys we've been talking about, boy, that would make that a pretty darn good class for Ohio State in the 2024 cycle. On the offensive side, one of the key pieces is quarterback Air Noland. He is another player out of the state of Georgia. He's already committed, and he spent the end of last week at the Elite 11 finals. That is a big annual quarterback event. Mark has covered that a bunch of times in the past. And Air Noland seemed like he put on a pretty good show. You get all these sort of different, everyone has their own analysis on why this guy was better than that guy. But the final, Air Noland was among the top 11. They just give you the winner. The official standings are they give you the MVP, which is Julian Sayin who's an Alabama commit. And then they give you the other 10 guys who were the Elite 11. And Air Noland was in that list. They don't put it in any kind of order. So he was obviously in the top half of the guys who were there. And then, some of the more unofficial lists, 247 put out their 3-day analysis, and they had Air Noland third behind Julian Sayin, who's an Alabama commit, and Dylan Raiola, the former Ohio State commit, who's now a Georgia commit. And, there was a Scorebook Live who was apparently very good SEO because their thing came up right away at the top of my Elite 11 analysis post thing that I Googled, and they had the same top 3. So, I guess the first question mark is, how much does this matter? How much does being, a successful time at the Elite 11, how much does that translate to this guy is going to be a really good college quarterback?
Well, it's a good data point. I mean, it's better than a camp. It's not as good as a game or obviously a full season's worth of film. Is it even as important as like even 7-on-7? I would argue you can probably get more out of a 7-on-7 than you could just the Elite 11. But it's a really good camp. I really enjoy covering it over the years. You get a great look at accuracy and arm strength and mechanics. So it's a data point. It is not the data point. It is not make or break. But I think what's encouraging with Noland is he had a great showing at the regional in Georgia, which we were at. And he had apparently another very good showing this weekend where he was a consensus top performer. So when everyone is saying you're one of the top few guys there, that's a really good sign. I think taking that even a step further in the positive department is a lot of people didn't think this would be his setting. I had a lot of people tell me before I went to see him, and I had seen him previously. I'd seen him at the Under Armour thing in February, so I had seen him already in t-shirt and shorts. But a lot before we went to the Elite 11 regional, a lot of people told me, we'll see how he does. He's more of a gamer. He's more, this type of thing. And there's been a lot of guys like that over the years, but he's shown he can do the camp thing pretty well too. So if this isn't his setting, that's encouraging that he's performed so well in something that maybe isn't best suited for his talents.
Yeah, and if you go through his stats from last year, if you want to put the game stuff ahead of, 7-on-7 in camp, I'll just read through his season stats from last year. And he's playing big boy Georgia high school football. So this is not, way out in the woods in North Dakota or something like that. I don't know if they have woods in North Dakota, but you know what I mean. He was 4,000 passing yards, 55 touchdowns, 4 interceptions last year, 6 rushing touchdowns on about 4 yards per carry. So, it seems like the game performance has been there for him. And now you've got a little bit of camp and you've got a little bit, you've got the 7-on-7. There is a 7-on-7 component to the Elite 11, but that's just one of the 3 days. So that's sort of all encouraging news for Ohio State out of that. Michigan's Jayden Davis, just because it feels like if you mention one of these guys, you have to mention the other. Jayden Davis was also ranked as one of the Elite 11 at that event. The 247 rankings had him 6th. But right in that top quarter or so. So it seems like Ohio State and Michigan might be both getting a pretty good quarterback in the 2024 cycle. Might that right, Mark? Mark it down. I think that might be a significant rivalry moving forward in the Big Ten as well. Exclusive must credit Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning podcast for that one. So some real interesting news on that recruiting front there. As Mark mentioned, the Buckeyes picked up another commitment last week. And probably more recruiting news coming up soon. We will be at Ohio State again this week. Got a couple camps coming up as the Buckeyes wrap up that June camp season. And then, boy, we are only about a month away from Big Ten Media Days, sort of the unofficial start of the season. We'll be in Indianapolis for that. Kevin just booked our hotel, so we're officially going. So that'll be fun again to be back there. And then, once that's over, we are really kind of in the home stretch heading into the fall camp. So Ohio State football season right around the corner. Lots of busy recruiting news coming up over the next few weeks. It might be a great time to be a member of BuckeyeHuddle.com, where we have our recruiting analysts, we have our team coverage, we have our X's and O's guys. Have a great community as well. Lots of fun chatter on the message board this weekend as people were sort of processing the Eddrick Houston and KJ Bolden news and much more, and the Elite 11 news and all that good stuff. So if you enjoy talking Ohio State football, enjoy listening, reading about Ohio State football, sign up today at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That will do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.